Throughout the lifespan of the scheme, the main goal was to remove one of the worst bottlenecks in the southeast region, if not in the country. New Ross has featured prominently in AA Road Watch bulletins over the years as having delays of up to 40 minutes at peak times. On the opening of the scheme, that bottleneck is no longer in place in New Ross town.
This project isn't solely a conduit for bringing traffic from, say, Cork to Rossall Airport. It's also hugely important in improving the quality of life for people who work and live every day in New Ross.
For us engineers, the span length is almost the most characteristic parameter of the bridge. And in this sense, this bridge is a world record in this specific category of extra dose bridges, because it has the longest span in the world for concrete extra dose bridges.
When you come to that slight bend in the road and the bridge vista opens up in front of you, my heart skips a beat, because I think it's just an amazing structure. The fact that it is the longest bridge in Ireland, the fact that it has the two longest post-tension concrete spans. I just think the ingenuity and the bravery to attempt such a structure, and it's on our doorstep, I don't think that the amazement will ever lessen. The need for the New Ross bypass was actually identified 27 years ago in the County Wexford Development Plan of 1993. It then made its way into the National Roads Authority Road Needs Study in 1998. It got permission from Bord Pleanála 10 years after that in 2008. There was contract signed in 2015, the sod was turned in 2016 and finished in 2020. There was a little bit of a glitch in the middle with the crash and Ireland's economic problems, which probably delayed it by a couple of years, but maybe 20-21 years would be typical of a project of this size.
From the locals' point of view, they would probably have started noticing traffic difficulties in New Ross probably the early 90s. Both Wexford and Kilkenny County Council were fairly quick off the mark at that stage, and they got this ambition, this objective to bypass New Ross in their county development plans in the early 90s. That really kicked off the process.
Obviously all the traffic that needs to go through New Ross needs to go across O'Hanrahan Bridge, and if at any time O'Hanrahan Bridge was to close to traffic, the diversion routes are approximately 40 kilometres in length, and they're through regional roads which have restrictions on them as well, with a certain number of very narrow bridges on those diversion routes. So it's very important for the town of New Ross to have an alternative to O'Hanrahan Bridge to allow traffic, unimpeded I suppose, travel on the national road network.
There was a lot of fear with New Ross being bypassed, but all the studies on bypasses throughout the world, whether it's the UK, Australia, America, have shown that towns with a critical mass, that is with a population of over 3,000 or 4,000, benefit from a bypass.
At that stage, the councils were stating their objective to put this bypass in place. The National Roads Authority at the time got behind the initiative and committed funding to start the ball rolling.
The name gives it away, it was the New Ross bypass. 13 of the 14.5 kilometres would have been in County Wexford. So Wexford County Council, by agreement, were the lead authority, but we had regular meetings with Kilkenny County Council, particularly between the New Ross municipal districts and the Piltown districts. So the collaboration benefited both counties enormously, so it was an easy ask, easy collaboration.
During the construction phase itself, we had very many stakeholders, the PPP company, the contractor, the designers, TII, Wexford and Kilkenny County Councils, all working together to ensure the scheme was delivered in accordance with the contract.
Iridium and BAM PPP, these two companies are very well known in the PPP market, in the developing of this type of private schemes. And obviously we are not experts in construction, but we hire some companies that are experts in construction. In our case, we have a joint venture between BAM Civil and Regados, that are well-recognized construction companies throughout the world, building, this type of projects, and even larger projects than this one.
Our main objective was to improve the transport corridor on the N25, to improve its efficiency, accessibility, connectivity. Then I suppose when we started to develop the project itself, we were looking at how we would deliver that objective. but we're really talking about delivering shorter, safer and more reliable journeys, and by doing that improve the economic efficiency of the region.
In projects like this, there's always a number of key objectives. One is to facilitate development, business interests and tourism in a region. Second objective is to save lives and reduce accidents because motorways and dual carriageways are very much safer. Further objective is obviously to relieve the chronic congestion that was in New Ross town. Then there are environmental improvements, carbon gas emissions are lessened. That is definitely a big benefit from a bypass like this.
We selected a route, I think it was back in 2002, very early days. But if you get that early stage wrong, it has serious consequences for a major project like this, where you're spending really significant amounts of public money. We look at the broader area, basically the possible options where we could build a bypass and build a crossing either over or under the river actually. And we look at the constraints that are in place that would prevent us from building the bypass along any particular area. You're looking at environmental constraints, existing roads, rail, rivers. At that stage then we go through public consultation exercises, we engage with the public and we do detailed assessments of the possible route options.
In 2010 and 2011 and 2013 we carried out archaeological test trenching. And that involved teams of archaeologists coming into this agricultural land and excavating a series of trenches, almost 78 kilometres of trenches in total. So all the excavation reports, as you might say, are lodged with the relevant authorities. But then, in order to communicate the results of all the work that was done over the last number of years, we'll be publishing a monograph or a book. So in this way, in a very significant way, the construction of projects like the New Ross Bypass and other major road projects around the country have led to a huge increase in knowledge of our archaeological past.
So we went through from 46 route options before we picked the route that we have built the bypass on and that people are now driving every day. The bypass begins in County Kilkenny at the new at-grade roundabout near Glenmore. It then rises eastwards towards Pink Rock. At this point, the bypass spans the River Barrow over the iconic Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Bridge. The bridge makes ground again at Stokestown in County Wexford, and the route continues northeasterly towards the R733 grade separated junction at Landscape. The road continues northeasterly for another 5 kilometres to Ballymacar, where an at-grade roundabout connects with the N25 Wexford Road. At this point, the bypass becomes part of the N30 route, continuing northeasterly for another 5 kilometres to an at-grade roundabout at Corcoran's Cross. Here, the N30 then continues towards Enniscorthy, connecting with the Enniscorthy bypass to provide onward access to the M11 and Dublin. In 1999, we appointed Mott MacDonald Ireland as consultants to assist us in going through the route selection process. They were absolutely key.
In the preliminary design, there was sufficient land taken in order to safely and economically maintain existing traffic flow while still actually constructing, let's say, new elements of the scheme. In New Ross's case, I mean, there are 3 at-grade roundabouts that were constructed, be it phased, let's say, or otherwise. The most obvious obstacle, although it's more a natural feature than an obstacle, would be a River Barrow itself. From Pink Rock, let's say, across to Stokestown is about 300 metres. The river isn't a deep body water river. Bank to bank, there's a navigation channel which is biased to the west side of the river itself, and then you have a sort of an intertidal mudflat on the eastern side.
From, I suppose, the earliest days of the project, we realised that crossing the River Barrow in a European Special Area of Conservation was going to be part of any option, and any crossing of the River Barrow is going to be a very significant bridge. A lot of thought went into picking the right location to cross the river, and we did get one of the narrow points in the river. Even from a cost point of view, that's hugely significant.
A bridge option selection report would have been prepared back in 2005, I think it was actually delivered. We would have looked at up to 7 or 8 different crossing types. What we didn't want was a structure which dominated the skyline. The structure had to align with the topography that it was dealing with.
The inspiration was, and was required, to build the largest bridge in the country to cross one of the widest rivers in the country, which was a challenge in itself. So it's a very complex bridge to build. The bridge is nearly 900 meters long and it has two main spans of 230 meters. The bridge is built in concrete, and it's built in concrete with a purpose of long-term durability. Concrete is more durable than steel. The drawback of using concrete is much heavier than steel in bridges, and that requires a construction method and a set of materials in the bridge in terms of the cables and steel that is far more challenging than if the bridge was actually made of steel, for example. If you look at the bridge from the distance, you can see it's very, very thin. And the towers are very shallow as well. You don't have very high towers over the deck. And that's what comes with an Extratus bridge, that you have that combination of a very slender structure and towers that are very shallow at the same time.
It's a concrete box girder, post-tension structure with incremental construction. Part of it was done by balanced cantilever. The whole idea of Extratus is that it's a means of providing external post-tensioning. Post-tensioning is actually required to ensure that the concrete element of the bridge structure itself, let's say, remains in compression. The structure itself is 36 metres above mean high water spring. Bridge deck levels in place are only 40 metres over, but we have towers which are very, very close to deck level as such. There was only a single pier to be constructed in the river itself. In order to construct that pier, of course, work had to be undertaken to actually provide foundations. There was up to 15 to 17 metres of soft alluvial material. There were very clever methodologies put in place in order to achieve that, and again to minimise, let's say, impact on the river area itself.
Due to the presence of soft ground on the east side of the river, 4 of the piers were required to be piled. Piling consisted of drilling or boring down through the ground to reach rock and constructing long reinforced concrete columns for the foundations to sit on.
We have a 36-metre vertical clearance in this bridge as well, and again that is provided in order to ensure that the port of New Ross will continue to operate.
Because it's a very slender structure, when we're building it, it moves a lot, and we need to correct the geometry of the bridge as we build it. So every single stage of the construction, when we're building a slice of a bridge, we check the geometry and we build a new section in a particular shape just to keep going in the right direction. Contractor and designer need to go hand by hand through all the stages of the construction and updating their design as they build the structure. And that requires a very, very strong integration between the construction teams and the design teams.
It was decided that there would be architectural lighting which fitted in, to the landscape itself. Again, you're not looking for something that's lighting up the entire night sky, more something subtle and as you're driving along, to get an appreciation day and night. The approaches to the bridges either side are on a curve. You can see the bridge full on before you drive over it. That sort of prompted us at the time to put 2 lay-bys on the Wexford side to ensure that people realise that if they did want to stop and, let's say, admire the structure, that they did so in safety.
There might be one single person designing the bridge, but at the end the result is the result of a very large team of people. You feel you have made what any bridge engineer want to make. I mean, a very beautiful bridge, and a bridge with which anyone may be satisfied.
There were 9 potential river crossing locations when this project was first looked at. The one chosen happened to be less than 1 mile from the front gate of the Kennedy homestead, through which Patrick Kennedy left for America in 1848. Our initial thoughts back in 2014 was that perhaps we should call it after President John F. Kennedy, because the Kennedy name brings huge tourism to New Ross. We had a discussion with Jean Kennedy Smith, John F. Kennedy's sister. She suggested that we call it after her mother, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. She said that acknowledges all 9 members of the family. By design or coincidence, there were 9 members of the family and 9 spans on the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Bridge. It went out to public consultation, it was voted upon, and Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy came out. Anybody that was at the opening, and there was another Rose Kennedy performed the official opening along with the Taoiseach. I think it was a wonderful occasion.
It's incredible to bring different parts of my own family together. And so thank you all for giving me the opportunity to do so. And in the backdrop of this most gorgeous bridge that we're here to harangue.
So my congratulations to everyone involved in the development of this project. I wish everyone who uses it safe travels. And with that, I'm delighted to declare this new bypass and bridge officially opened.
It's a global bridge, and the name reflects the global status of the bridge.
I feel particularly proud and privileged as a native of New Ross Town to have been given the opportunity to lead delivery of this iconic scheme on behalf of Transport Infrastructure Ireland. Within a week of the opening of the bypass, we were receiving pictures and reports of the traffic totally removed from the O'Hanrahan Bridge. We've heard from the local businesses that their footfall has increased and people are being tempted more into New Ross Town, and their business has actually increased.
I think this is a game changer in terms particularly of tourism, but it will also bring, in my opinion, further inward investment. Things are looking spectacularly well for the town of New Ross, and the bypass is the catalyst.
You don't break world records for free. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of engineering hours by a lot of people. So it's been actually a very, very great challenge for me to actually work in this bridge through these years.
It's been quite a long journey, 21 years. It is good to look back and reflect, have we delivered the objectives that we set out to deliver? It's early days, but it's looking good so far.